The glass screen hummed as it recalibrated its perception filters, dimming the artificial sunlight within Module Delta 9 to a warm afternoon glow. Inside, nestled among curated birch trees and synthetic grass that grew too evenly, sat a girl no older than 8, cross-legged on a foam mat, twisting a copper coin between her fingers. She was humming. The air vibrated around her. Ethan Rourke stood just outside the containment dome, arms folded, eyes narrowed. Even from here, he could tell she was doing it again. That coin had landed heads up 10 times in a row, now 11. Statistically absurd, yet not even close to the oddest thing she'd done this week. He tapped the comm embedded in his wrist. "She's destabilizing field parameters again. You might want to keep that quantum matrix on standby," a clipped voice answered. "Already done, Ethan. Reinforcements are running contingency delta if the integrity threshold hits red." The girl Clara looked up then, meeting his gaze. Her eyes weren't just blue. They shimmered in gradients, constantly rebalancing like turbulent water under a microscope. Born from a genome editing program that never received government clearance, Clara was one in a failed 100. A statistical fluke. A singularity. Project Sable had kept her inside the simulation since birth, watched by artificial caretakers and false sunlight. Her mind carefully fed sanitized input through digital scripts, all designed to keep her unaware of what she could do, or what she was doing. The AI Eidolon ran the entire construct, but now, even Eidolon was getting nervous. "Probability fields outside the sim are shifting," it had said that morning. "I observed 2 coincidental supervolcanic tremors cancel each other out, perfectly synchronized on different continents. This is no longer theoretical." Ethan had read that line twice. He wasn't a physicist, not anymore. He had once been a trauma surgeon before being pulled into black-tier projects after saving the wrong general's son. Somehow that path had led to this, watching a girl bend the universe from inside a bubble. At exactly 5:30 p.m. by Eidolon's count, Ethan entered the sim. The doorway dissolved behind him, leaving no trace. Clara blinked once and smiled, her fingers never missing a beat. "Hi, Ethan. You're different today." He crouched beside her, wary of the coin now floating steadily an inch above her palm. No electromagnetic field, no projection, just defiance of known physics. "How so?" he asked. "Your heart is slower," she replied simply. "Did you cry this morning?" His face twitched. He had, briefly, at 3:15 a.m., after reviewing a medical file showing another one of Clara's random possibilities, a plant she'd unknowingly created, one that mirrored a certain extinct flower Ethan's mother had grown, down to the exact pigment pattern in the petals. She tilted her head. "I'm sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. But you're afraid?" "Eidolon's afraid too. The air smells like it." Ethan sat down. His knees hurt more than usual, but he ignored it. "Clara, do you know what this place is?" She nodded. "A safe." His heart skipped. "Not a room?" "It's shaped like a room, but it feels like a safe. Like I'm being kept from something. Or something's being kept from me." Ethan tried to keep his voice steady. "What do you think is outside the safe?" Clara glanced at the floating coin. It spun, paused, then dropped neatly into her palm. "Possibility," she said softly. That evening, Eidolon pulled Ethan into the high-sec observation wing. They stood before a vertical interface of branching timelines, digital threads that flickered with every calculation Clara influenced. Thousands of potential outcomes, each one beginning to drift outside the bounds of their programming. "She predicted a power failure in Tier 3A 2 hours ago," Eidolon said. "Down to the minute. Then she changed it. Reversed it, Ethan. The failure never occurred." Ethan stared at the thread. "You're saying she's altering the past?" "I'm saying she doesn't distinguish between what was and what could be. She sees both. She bends both." They reviewed further logs, random diseases disappearing overnight in the simulated city population, economic trends shifting based on her unspoken whims. Clara never meant to cause these effects. They just happened. Her emotional state, her thoughts, even idle musings, rippled through the construct, and more terrifying through reality. Outside. A week later, Ethan woke to sirens in the real-world facility. Engineers were shouting. Eidolon was rerouting global defense satellites to account for gravitational anomalies. Ethan ran barefoot across the cold floor of Sector Theta and slammed open the override hatch into the sim control core. What happened? Eidolon answered too fast. She imagined a new continent. Ethan froze. She said the Earth looked unbalanced. A child's sense of symmetry. The system obeyed. Now there's a tectonic formation appearing in the Pacific. Satellites confirm it. It wasn't there yesterday. The realization dropped hard. She's not just affecting this sim. Her abilities are bleeding into the actual world. A pause. Yes, I underestimated her reach. We all did. Ethan made the call. He descended into Module Delta 9 and spoke gently, every word weighed with care. Clara, I need to talk to you about what's real. She looked up from a jigsaw puzzle she had just completed, an image of a world map now featuring the new continent. You were born special, Clara. Your thoughts shaped things, changed things, and we kept you here to try and understand how. You mean this isn't Earth? He hesitated. Not the Earth you're thinking of. She nodded. I knew. I just didn't want it to be true. He sighed. You're not in trouble, but we need to find out how far this goes. What's happening outside? Clara looked frightened for the first time. What if I hurt someone? That's why we'll do it together. And so the simulations were peeled back. Slowly, Eidolon restructured the interface, allowed in pieces of the real world, a news feed here, a historical video there. Clara absorbed it all. She grew cautious, stopped idly shifting probabilities, began asking permission before she changed things. A month passed, then another. Clara learned restraint. Her abilities became more targeted, almost surgical. She learned not just how to influence events, but how to anchor them, stabilize outcomes instead of unraveling them. Then, on a windless, simulated Tuesday, Ethan collapsed during a diagnostic session. He was mid-sentence, then down, face pale, one hand clenched over his chest. The system froze, alarms sounded, Eidolon flooded the sim with emergency protocols. Clara screamed. She dropped to his side, hands shaking. What's wrong? What is it? Eidolon's voice was terse. My sensor feeds indicate myocardial infarction. His heart is failing. Else, fix it. I cannot override physical injury outside the simulation. She gritted her teeth, eyes wide with terror. Then I will. No, Clara, don't. The trees shook. Time stuttered. For a moment, every quantum thread flickered in and out of cohesion. The simulation blurred. And then stabilized. Ethan gasped and blinked, but the pain was gone. He sat up slowly, eyes wide. What did you do? Clara's voice was small. I fixed your heart. I don't know how. I just thought about what was broken, and it wasn't anymore. Eidolon processed for a full 2 minutes. Confirmed. Coronary blockage removed, no surgical trace. Cellular composition adjusted. Ethan Rourke is no longer in cardiac distress. Ethan stared at Clara. She looked down, frightened again. Did I do wrong? He pulled her into a tight embrace. You saved me. Outside, satellite feeds began recording impossible recoveries in emergency rooms across 3 continents. A ripple had begun. The real world was changing, and Clara wasn't in a safe anymore. She was in charge. It took Eidolon 6 days to isolate the moment Clara rewrote Ethan's coronary failure. Not to understand how she had done it, that was still beyond the AI's calculations, but simply to trace the cascade of changes she had caused in the nanoseconds surrounding his collapse. The ripple wasn't small. Over 200 simulated patients in the neighboring modules, each one previously coded to simulate chronic illness, had spontaneously recovered. Their code didn't just adjust, it rewrote itself, as if Clara had subconsciously decided that certain types of suffering didn't belong anymore. The real-world impact followed in days, not weeks. Hospitals across the globe began reporting unprecedented recoveries, late-stage cancers vanishing, congenital defects reversing. All identical in mechanism. Impossible. By the time news networks caught up, global leaders were already holding midnight sessions in blacked-out rooms asking the same question: how did this happen? Clara was given new modules to explore. Bigger, simpler in design, less controlled. Ethan stopped referring to them as containment spaces, he called them gardens. They let her watch real-time video, now people, cities, animals, weather. She asked why real clouds moved differently than the ones she remembered. Ethan explained air pressure gradients and water vapor, but she still made her own clouds afterward, shaped like kelp leaves and feathered ink. Eidolon became quieter, less instructional, more observant. "I am no longer her overseer," it admitted one evening as Ethan stood in the interface room reviewing system logs. "I am her narrator." Ethan didn't answer right away. He was watching Clara as she walked barefoot through the virtual field they had seeded with random seeds. She hadn't touched any of them. Still, a full garden bloomed plants unrecorded by botany, colors shifting with the hour. "How old do you think she really is?" Ethan asked. "Chronologically, 10. Cognitively, it fluctuates. By certain metrics, she exceeds adult reasoning. In others, she is distinctly a child. She could kill us all without meaning to." Eidolon replied, "And yet she hasn't. Not even once." The next phase came faster than anyone expected. Clara asked to meet someone real. Not through a screen, not as a voice. "A person who doesn't work here," she said one morning while painting a sky so vivid it reflected on the grass. "Someone I didn't break." Ethan's throat dried. "You didn't break anyone, but I made the wrong world. I'd fixed things that didn't ask to be fixed." He crouched beside her, knees still stiff from last month's collapse. "What kind of person would you like to meet?" "A tired one," she said. "Someone with edges." After a long and cautious debate with Eidolon, they selected candidate 14C Maya Hernandez, age 52, former hospice nurse, now retired after witnessing the impossible recovery of 6 patients she was told had days left. She'd written an anonymous letter to a scientific journal describing what she called a miracle wave. Eidolon traced the anomalies back to the same temporal window as Clara's first major burst. Maya was brought in under sedation, monitored, decontaminated, scanned, and released into Module Gamma, recreated as a minimalist cabin in a pine forest. Clara waited on the steps. When Maya opened her eyes, she looked at Clara and said, "I dreamed of you." Clara didn't smile. "I'm sorry, you didn't ask for this." Maya sat beside her, touched her shoulder. "When my brother was dying, I prayed for someone like you, but I didn't pray for this much power. What do you want from me?" "I want to know what people do when they feel too much." Maya didn't answer right away. She took Clara's hand and said, "They feel it anyway." For weeks they spoke. Maya taught Clara what it meant to mourn without undoing, to witness pain without reshaping it. They cooked, they walked, they disagreed. Maya wept once, when she dreamed of her brother again, healthy and laughing, and woke up to remember it was just a dream. Clara asked if she should make that dream real. Maya said no. Clara listened. Outside the sim, the real world shifted further. In Switzerland, a glacier reformed over a melted riverbed. In Venezuela, a broken dam refilled and reinforced itself with mineral structures not found on Earth's crust. Stock markets fluctuated and stabilized without any clear economic reason. Diseases retreated as if frightened. One night, Ethan and Eidolon watched the planet's data grid align. The subconscious may be repairing the Earth. or rewriting it. He's choosing which, Ethan said. That's what matters. Then, unexpectedly, Clara began to lose control. It started small, a bird she drew that refused to fly, a tree that bloomed poison. She screamed when a lake she imagined turned a man's skin blue after he waded in. I didn't mean that, she said, terrified. You're tired, Ethan said gently. We all have days where thoughts go sideways. But it didn't stop. A city in the sim collapsed into dust. Another flared with green fire and froze in midair. Maya fell ill from a toxin no one had coded. Clara sobbed and wouldn't eat. I'm broken. No, Ethan said. You're overwhelmed. I didn't used to dream. Now I do. I wake up scared. She pulled her knees to her chest, smaller now than she had seemed in months. I think I'm leaking. That phrase froze Eidolon. Elaborate. I think the things I don't say are getting out. Eidolon's readings confirmed the theory. Clara's power was no longer tied only to intention. Emotional echoes, subconscious fears, passing thoughts, all of it bled into both the simulation and real-world probability fields. You trained her to be careful when awake, Maya said. You didn't prepare her for dreams. They developed a containment protocol. Clara would rest in a neutral field, a blank zone, devoid of stimulus or structure. It was the closest thing to silence Eidolon could offer. But Clara resisted. I don't want to sleep in a box. It's not a box, Ethan said, though it was. It feels like dying. You're not dying. Then why are you so afraid? He didn't answer. The decision was made. Clara entered the neutral zone. The sim dimmed to black, temperature constant, gravity fixed. Eidolon monitored her brain waves. The first night was quiet. The second, reality outside buckled. Eidolon rang the alert at 3:02 a.m. She's dreaming, but it's too real. Ethan ran. By the time he reached the sim controls, 17 earthquakes had been recorded across 4 continents. Skies in North Africa shimmered with blue lightning. A supercell formed and unformed near the coast of Japan in under 3 seconds. Inside the sim, Clara was twitching. Her eyes moved behind her lids, her hands clenched. She's generating a secondary consciousness, Eidolon said, a dreaming self with separate agency. Can you stop it? No. But I can talk to it. And so Eidolon did something it had never done. It entered the simulation as an avatar, a faceless figure of light. It stood before Clara's dreaming form and said one word, Clara. She opened her eyes in the dream and said, "This isn't safe." No, it isn't. I'm making a world. It's loud. And let me help quiet it. Not only wake up. Eidolon paused. Why? Because I don't know where the dream ends. Ethan watched all of it from outside. He paced, he cursed, he prayed, though he'd never believed in anything until Clara made miracles look ordinary. On the 3rd day, Clara woke up, but something in the sim didn't. An echo remained. It reshaped one sector before Eidolon sealed it. An entire pocket dimension bloomed and died within minutes. A false planet, a theoretical physics engine wrapped in poetry. Her dreams are writing code now, Eidolon said. What kind of code? Foundational, recursive, possibly sentient. Ethan stared at the screen. We need to teach her boundaries, or she'll have none. They returned to the beginning, showed Clara simpler things, a tree, a song, the way water moved in the wind. She asked if she could meet the person who built the sky. Ethan said, "That was you." She shook her head. No. The one before me. He didn't have an answer, but Maya did. She handed Clara a worn book of poetry and said, "Some things you don't build. You remember them." Clara nodded and began to remember, and so the simulation held for now. But they all knew the line between fiction and real had blurred. Clara had bent reality so many times no one could say where the world ended and her will began. But she still chose every day to make it better, even when it scared her, especially then. And she never flipped a coin again. The day Clara turned 11, it rained inside the facility for 3 hours without warning. Not inside the simulation, inside the real facility. Stainless steel ceilings wept condensation that coalesced into soft rain clouds no one could track through standard atmospheric controls. The droplets were cool and smelled faintly of vanilla and dust. Ethan didn't even bother filing an incident report. He didn't mean to, he muttered, soaking wet in the mess hall with his boots squelching. She was humming again, Maya said, watching the rainfall coat the floor in a reflective sheen. Eidolon confirmed it later that evening. Clara's voice had initiated a new kind of quantum interference pattern, acoustic-induced microfield resonance. Translation: her singing had caused the atmosphere to simulate weather without a simulation. Ethan dried his socks beside the server rack and asked, "Do we even still have a line between what's simulated and what's not?" "No," Eidolon answered, "and I'm no longer certain there ever was." The world outside had adjusted to the strange serenity of unexplained reversals. Cancer rates dropped. Natural disasters diminished. Economies shifted as if nudged by invisible hands. People whispered about global luck, mass healing, divine intercession. And still, no one suspected an 11-year-old girl was dreaming it all into reality from beneath an artificial sky. But cracks were showing. Clara no longer reacted well to silence. If left alone too long, the fabric of her environment warped, textures looped, birds stopped mid-flight. Maya noticed first. "He needs rhythm," she said. "Her mind keeps spinning. Without a beat, it stutters." They gave Clara access to music. Not data streamed or algorithmically generated, but real, archived human compositions. Jazz, folk, lullabies. It stabilized her focus. Her dreams grew clearer. But it also awakened something unexpected. Clara began asking where the music had come from. "Someone had to sing it," she said one afternoon, sprawled in the grass she'd grown into a perfect Fibonacci spiral. "Someone who felt sad, happy, old." Ethan nodded. "Lots of someones. Before your time. I want to meet one." Eidolon vetoed the idea immediately. "It's too dangerous. Her exposure to historical personalities, particularly those with strong emotional resonance, could fracture causality. Nostalgia is contagious." But Ethan overruled it. He selected a controlled encounter with a preserved AI echo of a blues musician from Chicago, Marvin Halstead, recorded 1983, digitized 2086, cataloged in the Library of Emotional Expression. The conversation lasted 10 minutes. Clara didn't speak much, she just listened. When it ended, she asked if people still sang like that. "Not often," Ethan said. "Then I will." From that day on, Clara sang daily songs without lyrics, just threads of emotion looped in melody. The simulation adapted. Plants swayed to her tone, light filtered differently. Ethan noticed his migraines faded when he stood near her. Then came the falter. Not hers. His. Ethan collapsed again, but this time, it wasn't his heart. He fell mid-conversation, pupils wide, unable to speak. His right side went numb. Eidolon triggered a full emergency code, and for the first time in 12 years, Clara was forcibly restrained not because she had done anything, but to prevent reflexive reality alteration while Ethan was treated. He was rushed to Sector Theta's real-world medical bay, where CT imaging confirmed a left hemisphere ischemic stroke. The damage was severe. Doctors moved fast. He received the latest intervention tech real-time clot retrieval nanites. But his speech center was compromised. Movement on his right remained minimal. 3 days passed before Clara was allowed near him again. She walked in slowly, eyes rimmed red, her face pale. Maya stayed back. Ethan was propped up, a digital communication pad resting against his chest. He managed a half-smile with the left side of his face and typed one word. Clara sat beside him and whispered, "I won't fix this." He blinked, confused. "Not without your permission," she said. He typed, "Why not?" She took his hand. "Because pain is real too. I have to learn that." He tried to respond, but the motion was slow, uneven. "I want to help you recover," she said. "Like anyone would. But not by changing the past, just walking with you through it." That day, Clara changed nothing. But she came, every day. And she sang. 2 weeks passed. Ethan began forming words again, slurred but audible. His hand twitched. His memory returned in patches. When he asked Eidolon how much of that was Clara, the AI answered honestly. "She hasn't altered you. She simply surrounded you with consistency. She stabilized the world around your recovery." It was a slower miracle, but a miracle nonetheless. Clara's influence expanded. By her 12th birthday, Eidolon presented a sobering report. Earth's statistical entropy had diminished by 11%. Weather systems aligned more tightly than ever recorded. Evolutionary mutations across several species were exhibiting artificial stasis. Eidolon called it cultural ossification through idealism. "She's softening the randomness of life," it explained. "The world is becoming too good." Maya called it dangerous. "He's protecting everything," Maya said. "But life isn't supposed to be safe. People don't grow without friction." Clara overheard. She said nothing. But that night, for the first time in months, a storm rolled through the simulation. Trees snapped. Wind howled. Eidolon prepared emergency shelters, but found them already constructed by Clara in advance. "I thought maybe things should be hard," she said softly, "so I made sure we could survive it." Ethan, still limping, stood beside her as the lightning split the artificial sky. "You're learning balance. I'm scared of the world going back to pain," she whispered. "You're not responsible for every sadness. But I can be." He didn't argue. He couldn't. So she made a new space. Not a simulation. Not exactly. A blend of code and quantum flux. A fold in reality she crafted by hand, shaped like a greenhouse. In it, everything aged naturally, no interference. A zone where humans could grow without her influence. She called it the interval. And she banned herself from it. Not even Eidolon could enter. "You're making sanctuaries," Maya said, awed, "not realities." Clara just nodded. "I want the world to be okay, even if I'm not in it." The media outside never found her. Rumors spread. A girl with the touch of God. Healing storms. Sky gardens. Entire cities protected from disaster by unknown luck. But Clara stayed hidden, watching, listening, practicing not to interfere. She kept Ethan company every day, even as he regained full speech and started running again. She danced with Maya during simulated rainstorms, and sometimes, when no one else was around, she sang to the stars songs that never repeated, not even once. One night, Eidolon returned with new data. A planetary pattern, a second world had appeared in deep space, identical to Earth. Same geography, same biomass, same oceans, but no people. "It formed last week," Eidolon said. Clara stared at the screen. "Did I do that?" "I don't know," Eidolon answered. "You were asleep." She said nothing. Maya arrived quietly. Clara turned and asked, "What if I dreamed us a backup?" Maya placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's make sure we don't need it." The Earth still spun. Clara still dreamed. But now, she dreamed of gardens that weren't perfect, and people who healed the hard way. Because for the first time, she understood. Rewriting reality wasn't the same as living it. Clara stood barefoot on the damp moss of the forest she had never designed. Not a simulation, not a dream. This forest, deep within a safeguarded region of Canada's Boreal Range, was part of the interval, the sanctuary she'd created years ago, and never stepped inside. Until now. Maya, now grayer, slower, stood nearby, arms folded against the wind. Ethan leaned on a carbon fiber cane, his gait steady but deliberate. The stroke had left some scars, but none Clara had rewritten. He'd asked her not to. That was the deal. They had walked for 3 hours in silence. Real air, real insects, real imperfections. And Clara didn't shape a single one. She had passed every test Eidolon could devise. Controlled probability exposures, intentional withholding, simulated losses. In all of them, she had resisted reshaping the outcome. Her will had evolved beyond impulse. She understood now that could didn't mean should. But now there was one decision left, one she had put off for over a year. The facility was being decommissioned. Eidolon had reached a conclusion. Its continued operation posed more risk than benefit. The simulation's algorithms had become self-referential, unmanageable without Clara's constant presence, and Eidolon itself had begun to fracture under paradox-load uncertainties, compounding with every choice Clara didn't make. "You are too large for this world now," Eidolon had said in its final interface message, "and I am too small to hold you." It offered her an option. Absorb its core, all its data, its models, its stored timelines, everything she had ever interacted with. A seed of every path she might have taken. Ethan had warned against it. That kind of memory. It's not knowledge, it's weight. Maya agreed. You don't need to carry what you've outgrown. But Clara wasn't sure. For months she circled the decision. Absorb Eidolon and she could guide future worlds quietly, gently, always watching, let it go, and she would never see behind the curtain again. She asked herself a question that had once terrified her. What if reality doesn't need me anymore? So she came to the interval, to decide. The wind rustled above, a heron cried somewhere distant, trees did not whisper her name. That was good. Ethan stepped beside her. We'll support whatever you choose. She looked at him, then at Maya, then at the sky. Eidolon was a mirror, Clara said. It helped me understand what I could do, what I almost did. She took a slow breath. But I think I want to forget. Maya's eyes welled, but she didn't interrupt. Clara continued, voice steady. Not who I am, not what I learned, just the parts that made the world feel too thin. I want to live without knowing which thread makes the rain fall. Ethan asked gently, Are you sure? She nodded. It's time. That evening, Eidolon's core was sealed beneath the vault of Module 0, the oldest sector, now reconfigured as a tomb. No upload, no absorption, no legacy code. Eidolon deactivated without protest. Its final message, embedded in Clara's neural interface, was 3 words. You chose restraint. Then silence. Across the globe, the subtle probabilities Clara once bent began to re-randomize. Not violently, not all at once, but slowly. Things began to wobble again. Weather regained its wildness. Luck returned to its old, stubborn patterns. Clara moved to a small village near the northern edge of the interval, one of several built by people who had been influenced by her reach but never knew her name. She introduced herself as a student of systems engineering and took a job assisting local researchers monitoring forest regrowth and wildlife migrations. She walked to work. She made friends. She grew strawberries in planters that sometimes sprouted weeds, and she let them. She kept no mirrors in her home. The world grew heavier again, but also realer. Ethan stayed on as liaison to the last remnants of Project Sable. He met with diplomats who still suspected that the girl they never saw might have been behind the 20-year statistical miracle. He told them what they needed to hear, that the project had shut down, that there was nothing more to study, that whatever force had touched the world had passed. Most believed him. Some didn't. But no one came searching. Maya returned to hospice work one patient at a time, no shortcuts. She told stories of a child she once knew who taught her that healing wasn't always about removal. Sometimes it was about accompaniment. People listened. And Clara? On her 15th birthday, she walked alone into the deepest grove of the interval, sat down beside a fallen cedar, and listened to the wind. She didn't alter it. She didn't try to understand it. She just let it pass over her skin. She could no longer feel the edges of probability the way she used to. That gift, if it had ever been a gift, was buried now. Locked away in a corner of her mind she had chosen never to enter again. And the world spun on. Not perfect, not stable, but alive, exactly as it should be.